Great. So we've given you kind of this whirlwind tour of some of our projects, where we've been, where we are now, but now we want to focus on where are we going. And so I'm going to talk to you about what we're looking towards over the next couple of years. So the goal of our work is not only to influence what happens within McDowell Sonoran Preserve, but also to influence management actions across a much, much broader scale. So what we're learning here in the preserve through these and our other projects are really helping us better understand the preserve's ecosystem, and it's helping driving actions to protect the special place. But our work has implications far beyond the preserve boundaries. And so what we're doing can influence management actions throughout the region and throughout the state, throughout much of the Sonoran Desert. And from there, we're not stopping. We plan to take over the world. But in all actuality, some of the work that we are doing is applicable across arid lands across the entire world. So I'm going to walk you through our future plans for all of these projects, taking them priority by priority. So starting with this first one, which is to assess the impact of the urban stressors and climate change on the resources of the Sonoran Desert. So we are planning to continue all of our long-term monitoring projects into the foreseeable future. Many of these are still in their infancy. We just have a few years of data, maybe 3 to 5 years under the belts of many of them. And ideally, we need at least 5 years, preferably a lot longer than that, before we're able to really start to assess the trends and the factors that are influencing these resources. But we are starting to analyze these data, and our goal is to start summarizing findings for half of these projects each year. So you've already seen some of the results for half of those, and we'll be focusing on the other half in future years. We're really looking forward to digging further into these and starting to suss out some of those trends and determine the management actions. So we are planning to continue these over the long term, which, as Helen said, is really crucial for being able to detect these changes and to be able to recommend possible management actions in order to protect these resources and the overall ecosystem. As part of this, we are also investigating ways to compare our data with other regional data sets to understand trends and management needs over these larger areas. So as far as we are aware, there are no species that are unique to the preserve, but the preserve does make up a really important part of their range. So by tying our data in with similar projects across the region and by collaborating with partners, we can have a much better understanding of the big picture and what's needed to protect these important resources throughout their entire range. So as examples of that, for birds, we are currently working with Audubon, with Arizona Game and Fish Department and other partners to determine what data is available, who else out there is conducting these surveys, and what we can do to kind of account for all of the different survey techniques that are involved in birds so that we can actually make good comparisons between these data. For butterflies, as Ron mentioned, we are working on making some comparisons with other counts that are occurring throughout the region and are being reported to the North American Butterfly Association. For our plant and animal phenology work, we are working with the National Phenology Network to determine how our data are already being used in these broader studies, as well as additional comparisons and analyses that can be made. So as an example of this, recently our soap tree yucca data were included in a study at the Jornada Experimental Range in New Mexico, and they were looking to determine the start and end dates of the growing seasons of the yucca. And our yucca data was also used in a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service project called Flowers for Bats, where they're seeking to understand the availability of agave resources for sensitive bat species as they're migrating. And speaking of bats, Debbie gave you a little teaser about this, and I'll discuss it more in a couple of minutes, but we are starting a new project and are going to be tying our data into the North American Bat Monitoring Program. And so with that, I wanted to say that we recently received a heritage grant, which is allowing us to start a new project as well as dive further into the bats. And so we're very excited about these projects that we're going to do. The first one is with the Sonoran Desert tortoise. This is a sensitive species. It is here in Arizona considered a Tier 1A species of greatest conservation need, which means that it has some extra protections here. And it's also being considered for listing under the Endangered Species Act at the federal level. Primary threats facing this species include habitat loss and fragmentation, which you've heard a lot about today, as well as disease and removal from the wild. So it's well known that urbanization and development influence the species. They do affect it, but it's really not known in what ways that happens and what the management options are available in order to mitigate that. And so that's the goal of this project. We're hoping to fill in some of those gaps in the knowledge. This is an ideal opportunity to study that, again, with the preserve being a wildland-urban interface. We're able to understand how the urbanization, as well as how pressures such as internal recreation, could be influencing what the species does. The preserve is also an understudied population. As far as we're aware, there has not been a study on tortoises done in the preserve, and so this is the first that is occurring, and that's going to help better understand not only this population, but also the species overall. So all of this data is going to be kind of working together with the other projects that we have to better understand the preserve ecosystem. As part of that, better understanding connectivity within the preserve and within the larger landscape. So looking at how roads, how trails, how other factors might be influencing what tortoises are doing within the preserve and what is needed in order to protect the species, as well as the habitats on which they depend. So there's kind of three parts to this project. The first one is to actually find tortoises out there. So we started that within this past month. Our goal is to put transmitters on 20 animals, which will allow us to locate them again. And they'll also receive GPS transmitters, which will take a location every hour. So if you think about that, 20 animals, getting a location every hour for 2 years, we are going to have an abundance of information on these animals, and it's going to be great. And then one of the big parts of this is outreach and education. We are wanting to help educate people about tortoises, about how important they are, why our work is so important to protect the species, and most importantly, the role that they play in protecting species such as this and in the habitats that they depend on, such as the preserve. So then the second part of our heritage grant is focused on bats, and Debbie gave a really great overview on this. But thanks to the heritage grant, we have been able to strengthen our current work and expand. We've been able to purchase our own equipment to continue our emergence counts. And we also started this new aspect of acoustic monitoring in different areas of the preserve. So this is a great opportunity for regional and continental data comparisons. So we'll be sharing this information with the North American Bat Monitoring Program, which is going to inform understanding of bat occurrence across the entire continent, document trends over time, and also determine the management that's needed to protect these species throughout their broader ranges. So moving into our second priority. So again, this is trying to determine effective management practices to be used in arid lands. As you've heard, we are wrapping up a couple of these projects, including the closed trail restoration experiment and our fountain grass control experiment. And so now we are able to start using the knowledge gained from these as we move into the management side of our work. We're also continuing some of our projects. As you heard from Debbie, we've got a lot going on with our soil crust. We're continuing our storage experiment, trying to determine how storage might influence the viability of these crusts to be reintroduced into the field. And then of course, we're continuing our experiments to actually determine how to reintroduce them into the field and what methods work best. And then as you heard from Paul, we are continuing this buffalo grass control work because it just doesn't want to be tamed. So we'd like to get another year or two under our belts with this, just so we can help tease out whether it was the drought that really influenced what we saw out there, or if our treatments are having a bigger effect. And then we're also expanding some of these projects. So in the restoration world, we are moving into RestoreNet Phase 2. And so working with our partner at the U.S. Geological Survey, we're determining next steps, which could include potentially sampling the microbial community and the disturbed and undisturbed sites, doing some mycorrhizal treatments or seed balls with inoculum to improve seeding, and some other things. A postdoc is also working on analyzing the cumulative data across all of the USGS RestoreNet sites, including the 4 that we oversee, which is really exciting. We're also looking at potential options for using the successful treatments that we have seen from our other projects and combining those to see what works best out there in the field. So things such as the surface modifications, using those seed bank soils, seeding with the species that actually germinated in our plots. And we actually just submitted a grant which would give us a leg up and allow us to accomplish that. And then we're also doing a lot more with the invasive annual plant control. And as you heard from Paul, he's actually been doing some mini experiments out there, doing a lot of research, background research on potential control options. And then he's been doing these mini experiments and he's been seeing a lot of positive results, which is really great. So finally, moving into that last priority, and again, this is kind of the culmination of the first two, taking the knowledge that we gained from those first two priorities and then actually putting them into action. So you heard from Paul that we are using the results from our non-native plant experiments and now applying those on the ground here in the preserve, as well as sharing that information so that can be used elsewhere. And that includes looking at the different size of the infestation as well as the different species. We're also using our degraded lands mapping results to prioritize restoration sites in the preserve, and we're now working with the cities to start implementing large-scale restoration practices at these sites. And then also with IUCN, we're still working on those individual plant species assessments, but as those wrap up, we're going to be moving into the conservation planning side of that to inform management across the Sonoran Desert. As all of this, we are continuing to strengthen as well as expand our partnerships. I'm just going to quickly run through these. We are involved in a few different initiatives with the Central Arizona Conservation Alliance, including the two shown here. The Invasive Species Working Group has a goal of identifying areas where we can better collaborate, and that includes between governments and municipalities, nonprofits, land managers, and more. And so we're planning to put together a draft strategy by the fall that includes how to make tools for this more accessible to others. And then after that, the working group will morph into something more action-oriented to get partners and sectors more engaged in non-native plant control. Desert Defenders is a group within CASCA that focuses on engaging people and removing non-native plants. And so we're continuing to engage new partners and individuals as part of that. And we're also looking to expand that through iNaturalist or some other platforms that will allow more people to get involved without having to go through intensive in-person training as part of that. Sticking with the non-native plant theme, we just started an exciting new partnership with Intel. Somebody actually posed a question in the chat about this. So Intel is investigating using high resolution imagery from drones in order to survey some of the more difficult to access areas of the preserve for non-native plants. And so that would greatly improve our efficiency as well as the safety of people working out there in the field. We also started a recent partnership with the City of Scottsdale FireWise program. The Scottsdale Fire Department has long recognized the risk from invasive plants and recognizes that a concerted effort with communities, HOAs, and other organizations is really needed in order to tackle that. And so through the FireWise program, they're providing broad support and encouragement to HOAs and homeowners to become FireWise and to defend their home and their communities against wildfire. And so we're really excited to be part of that and to be able to provide some on-the-ground support for those efforts. As I've discussed, we are working on these regional flora and fauna analyses. And so we're trying to identify others in the region conducting this work so that we can assess regional trends and work together to maximize our impact. And then finally, we just started a brand new partnership with the River of Time Museum in Fountain Hills. It's an information sharing partnership. We are helping them redesign some of their exhibits at the museum, and they're helping get the word out about who we are and opportunities to engage with us as well. So then last but not least, I want to mention communication, because this is one of the most important things that we can do. We don't want to gather all of this information and just sit on it. Instead, it's really important that we get it out there. And this goes back to our Field Institute mission, and that is to inform natural resource management, to contribute knowledge to the scientific community, and to inspire people to be stewards of the land. So the first step in that is to share our data and our findings with land managers. That includes the City of Scottsdale so they can best manage the preserve, but also managers of the other arid lands that they can best understand and protect those precious resources as well. As part of that goal of informing, understanding, and management, we feed our data into these larger databases, including the regional, national, and global, which helps inform understanding at much, much larger scales than what we can accomplish on our own. And then we're also interested in getting this information out there to the scientific community. And we do that through collaborations, through publications that you've heard about, reports, presentations, events such as this, and so on and so forth. We're also sharing some of our raw data as appropriate to provide comprehensive analyses and better inform understanding and management. And this is a great opportunity to start some two-way dialogues and establish new partnerships as well. But then I think most importantly is getting this information out there to the public, because they are the ones who need to know this information, because they are the ones who make the biggest difference out there. So within the citizen science program, we recently created a communications team, which is helping us get the word out about our work, both within the Conservancy to our other volunteers, as well as more broadly to the public. We're also working on redesigning our website to provide more information about our projects and what people can do to help. And we're also working with our education staff, stewards, and partners to weave our findings and our methods into our educational offerings, all the way from the youth who come out and participate in our annual Expedition Days event, up through our natural history courses and other education offerings that we provide to adults. So the goal is really to raise awareness of what we are doing, but much more importantly, raise awareness of the important role that everybody has to play in this work and what they can do to help protect these places and these resources that we all love. So with that, I'm going to wrap up with this slide and encourage you to learn more and get involved. There's lots of ways to stay informed about the work that we're doing, including a couple of different newsletters. We have a Conservancy-wide newsletter. You can sign up for that on our website. We also have a citizen science newsletter in case you're interested in monthly information about what we are doing. Contact me if you'd like to get information about that. Also, please check out our website. We've got a science blog on our website and a lot of other information. I encourage you to volunteer with us, whether you're a steward, whether you're a partner, whether you're somebody who has never heard of us before and this is your first interaction. Come out and get involved with us. You can contact me if you want to get involved in any of our projects or learn more about, I can't speak anymore. Learn more about them. If you want to take it a step further, I encourage you to become a steward. We are planning to restart our Stewardship 101 classes this fall, and those will be offered monthly. There's information and the application on the website. I will note, if you are a steward and you want to get more involved in any of these projects, go into Better Impact and you can check the interest box, or you can contact me or the project lead for these. And then finally, we are always interested in finding new partners and new collaborators. So if you are interested in collaborating, sharing information, helping us communicate the importance of this work, please contact me. We would love to learn more from you and partner with you. And with that, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much to all of our amazing presenters. We're really excited about everything that we've accomplished, but we're even more excited about where we're going with this. And we're really excited to have all of you along for the ride on that. And so with that, we're going to wrap up. I encourage you, continue putting questions in the chat, or honestly, I've listened to myself way too much. So feel free to unmute yourself as well. We would love to hear your voices. And I'm going to stop sharing, and thank you all so much.